Hotties. Yeah, welcome to the Auddy Hottie podcast.
Here we are. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Hey, so welcome to Auddy Hotties. I'm your co-host Bree.
And I'm your co-host McKenna.
And we are just two friends who really love talking about our experiences with our autism and ADHD and just life in general.
It's a fun life.
Yeah, that's kind of who we are. So our goals of this podcast is that we are not really trying to be educational. We know that there are a lot of podcasts out there that are wonderful and can help you with learning all kinds of things about yourself, but this place is more for us to talk about our lived experiences, where we find joy in life, what kind of things like work and don't work for us.
Yes, and we're keeping things realistic. There's going to be humor, but we're really here just to share how our experiences are.
Yeah. So some disclaimers in that arena. The first one is that we don't plan to hold back on cussing. So if being potty mouth is not your favorite thing, then this is maybe not the place for you.
Yeah. One of our biggest goals is to not be masking on this podcast. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like if I'm monitoring my speech, then that is a form of masking.
Yeah.
So not into it.
Absolutely. And I'm not all about spending a bunch of time trying to edit out us being ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
The editing process is already going to be a big feat.
Yes. Another disclaimer is that we understand that our experience is not everyone's experience. So we are speaking to what we know, and we understand that that is not going to be the same for everyone. So, take it or leave it, whatever resonates for you or doesn't. That's totally fine. Yeah, and we already said that we're not experts, so we're not looking to inform you on anything.
Not giving medical advice.
Yep, no medical
not
advice.
Saying that our diagnosis experience is going to be the same as your diagnosis experience, especially since there's various privileges that play into that. I think we're in a pretty lucky part of the country right now, being on the West Coast. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say
anyway.
So some things that we hope to bring for you guys are to our hotties, our listeners, is reading some Reddit stories, updates on our day-to-day life, some like tips and tricks kind of things.
And then, I don't know if we'll ever get into an advice type of format, but maybe we'll get there. Who knows?
Something that like really works for us or really doesn't, we might be advising you one way or the other.
But also like take it as a grain of salt.
Yeah.
We are not experts. And we'll also talk a little bit astrology. And maybe talk a little bit of tarot cards. It's something that I'm starting my journey with, and I think it'd just be fun to share on here. And we'll also bring on some guests, maybe other neurodiverse folks or other folks that we find interesting and would love to talk to for a little bit of time.
Yeah. And then we're hoping eventually to have some listener stories too. So whenever you want to, feel free to write in. We have email, we have Instagram, we have hopefully TikTok, as long as it stays in place. You can find us at Auddy Hotties at any of those locations. And our email is auddyhotties@gmail.com. So feel free to send us your stories, your questions, whatever. We'd love to talk about it and kind of get you guys involved with us too.
We'd love to connect.
Yeah. All right. So we'll go with kind of a little introduction of who each of us is, and then we'll ask each other a few questions at the end.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Who are you, Bree?
So I am, for the people listening and not watching, I am a white cis-presenting woman. I am queer and also polyamorous or non-monogamous. I kind of use both interchangeably for me. And I have a girlfriend. Her name is Lauren. She's part of the inspiration of this podcast. So shout outs to her, and you'll hear lots about her.
As you should.
Yep. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm 32, and I got diagnosed with autism level 1 support needs in, I think I counted it back to 2020-ish when I was 28. And then I'm not officially diagnosed with ADHD, but I most likely have hyperactive type ADHD. So just from personal experience and everyone else's, and I'll talk about this more later on a future episode, but when I got my autism diagnosis, I was still not really like understanding of what the ADHD versus autism was and how they interact together. And now that I have a little bit more knowledge, I think that's the case. But I don't really feel the need to go back and get more diagnosis at this point in time. So Yeah, that's basically my story.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Your turn. Who is McKenna?
Who am I? It's a never-ending question. My name's McKenna. I am turning 32 next week. So excited. I am a white, fat, queer, non-binary human who uses she, they pronouns. And I was diagnosed with ADHD by a therapist in fall of 2021. And then this past spring, I was diagnosed with autism, level one autism, also combined ADHD. So kind of had that official diagnosis by a psychologist.
An update to
And
the current status.
sealing the deal, updated, all the things. And I really pursued my autism diagnosis while being medicated for ADHD. We'll talk a little bit about this more in our next episode, but um, being medicated for ADHD really brought out a lot of my autistic traits that I had not only been masking, but just hadn't really been paying attention to. So that's what led me to get diagnosed, and it's been fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been fun, but it's been quite a journey trying to figure out how to navigate this world as an ADHD person.
Yeah. It's amazing how much difference medications can make either one way or the other, making some things worse, some things better. So
Yeah.
that'll be another future episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Medication.
Yeah. Okay, so now we'll just ask a couple other questions about our lives. So, McKenna, what do you do for work?
I am a speech language pathologist. I am working in the transitional program. So I'm working with adults that are 18 to 22 and as they transition from academia to real life.
Yeah, and that involves some work with people with neurodiversity, right?
It does. Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of my job is that there's a few autistic students, there's a few non-autistic students, but one of my biggest joys of that job is to support their autonomy wherever they're at and be able not only to interact with them in that way, but train other adults to interact with them that way. So
Awesome.
it's a great job.
Yeah.
I
The
feel
more I
very,
hear about it, the more I'm like, wow, this is really like
yeah.
right down your alley.
Yeah, thanks for saying that because it took a little bit of time to get there, that's for sure. I actually started out where Bree is, which we'll talk a little bit about what she does, but um, I've I graduated my grad program last January and have had 3 jobs since then. So it's taken a little bit of navigating.
Wait, what was the third one? I know two.
Well, okay, so I went from EI, early intervention, to the different middle schools.
Oh, okay.
So I worked at 3 different middle schools, which was a lot of fun. And it also was a position in which there was a lot of autonomy building, self-advocacy skills. And then it being 3 different locations just did not work out for me. I didn't formally ask to move to a new school, but there was like an internal opening for this program.
Oh,
and I asked my supervisor, I was like, is this okay that I'm in my first year? Would it be appropriate to switch over? And she was like, absolutely. You can start from scratch. There's never been a full-time SLP at this program before. So I really am creating what that role looks like. And it's definitely awkward at times. And I'm like, imposter syndrome all over the place, but
yeah.
I know that I'm doing everything that I need to be doing and that it's definitely a year of learning. So anyway, that makes it 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. I can't remember when you started your section. Did you say speech language pathologist?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
You said it at the beginning.
I
Okay,
did.
perfect.
I'm a speech language pathologist.
Perfect.
But I hate that word. So I usually say speech therapist.
Yeah, it makes more sense, and pathology sounds bad, so
it does. And there's nothing wrong with differences, which is just my biggest song to the world. So
yeah.
Celebrate differences. Anyway, what do you do for work?
So as McKenna said, I work in early intervention. I'm a physical therapist. I work with only babies birth to 3. I go in their homes or daycares, wherever in the community that they kind of are. I switched from outpatient, which I was doing before in Alaska, and there I kind of saw everything across the gamut. I saw all ages, all diagnoses, I saw orthopedic problems, neuro problems, all kinds of things. But I really found for me with my autism that it's changing between person to person to person to person, and me just being in the same building all day with fluorescent lights and just a lot of overwhelm and talking to people all day long was a lot.
Yeah.
And this position has really suited me a lot more because I've got a little bit of drive time between each of my kiddos. So I kind of take a minute to decompress. I know so for some people going into other people's homes is hard, but for me, the like change in scenery and variety and like things to do after the first visit, the first one's always awkward. But after
It
that,
is.
then I feel a lot more comfortable like going into people's houses and being in that different environment every day. So yeah, so I've been doing that for almost 2 years now. In
Wow.
January it will be. So by the time you hear this, I'll have been at my job for 2 years. And I plan to stay there for a while longer. The balance is also a lot better as far as the hours go and just the breaks and stuff that we get being part of the school district in a way. So
Yeah, your schedule is awesome.
yeah.
They do 3 weeks on, 3 weeks in service, and then 1 week of not in service.
Yeah. Which would be
Yeah.
absolutely incredible if I also didn't have to work a second job and kind of a third job. So
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, three for me too at the same time. So my other jobs, I also work at a PRN job, so an as needed PT job with elderly people. It's not my favorite, but it pays the bills, and it's pretty flexible. And then I also am a landlord. I have 3 tenants, and they're all lovely people. I've had the best luck. So hopefully that keeps up and it just helps, pay the bills. So
How do
yeah.
you feel about having multiple jobs? That's been something that
Oh,
I've struggled with in the past, so I just wanted to ask.
oh yeah, it's a big struggle.
Yeah.
Mostly because I have a lot of time blindness, and then that time blindness turns into when I'm working multiple things, feeling like I have no time at all. But then when I have time, I'm not doing anything productive to help myself
Well, you don't
relax
think
and
you
calm down.
are, right? Is that perception, or are you actually not doing things?
Well, so even if I try to relax, I
Yeah,
don't feel like I'm relaxing.
got it.
So then, like, whatever I'm doing doesn't feel like the thing I'm supposed to be doing to calm down.
Yeah.
And I think it's just time. I think it's like, in reality, if I could work the way that my body needs to work, it would be like either work a day, off a day, or like work a day, half a day, work a day, half a day, or something like that, because I need more time than what I have between
Yeah.
each thing that I have. So it's not ideal, but I'm catching up on debts. I um bought a house in the last year. I went through a divorce in the last year. So finances have been a real issue, but I'm really hoping to be able to drop at least one of the jobs in the next year.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I'm working on becoming a handy woman. That's one of my hobbies. And I have some realtor friends who are helping hook me up with some different things that I can help them with and make some money on side jobs. So I'd much rather do that than be doing the second and third jobs, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
it's a season.
Yeah.
It's a busy season.
So speaking of hobbies, what are your hobbies?
Okay, well, as someone with ADHD, isn't everything a hobby?
Right. Is the better list what aren't your hobbies?
Does hobby mean that you have tried it more than once?
We've talked about this before, but does hobby mean that you have all the equipment for said project and you never ever use it again?
Yes,
But you could. It's there.
theoretically. So, is that your hobby bin, or is that your one-time only bin?
Yeah, who knows?
I definitely have a bin at my house that has roller skates, ballet shoes,
Mhm.
tap shoes, soccer shoes, yoga mat.
You use the yoga mat though.
I do use the yoga mat.
It goes in the regular use bin.
It can be transferred over. And I think there's like swimming goggles.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's my little ADHD bin and I love it. Most of them are one-time use items. Um, no, I hobbies. I really love plants.
Mhm.
I really love gardening in the summertime, this past summer, I had a beautiful flower garden that I was very proud of. I love hanging out with my dog. I have a dog named Frankie. She's a chocolate lab.
Oh.
She's so much fun. Um, I really enjoy creativity, and I'm on a journey to figure out some creative outlets that I can have at my apartment and just kind of stay home, do the thing. So dabbling in painting and drawing. I love writing. I've been writing a lot of poetry this year. So that's kind of one of my hobbies. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Throwback to that one time when we have a notes app going on our iPhones for the podcast. I was like, but someone accidentally made a note with a full, I believe, a poem on accident in the podcast folder instead of in there.
Yeah.
I did not read it because privacy, but it was
so
hilarious when you caught it and you were like, oh my gosh.
I'm a Pisces moon. I'm very in my feels. The Notes app has been incredibly helpful for that. But yeah, I had no idea. I've never made a shared note before with someone, so I didn't know that it automatically went into the shared file. I think it was just the way that I had accessed that folder beforehand. So thank you for not looking. Because I went back and I was like, oh, big cringy poem. Would love to keep this private.
Excellent. Was maintained.
Anyway.
So guys, respect your friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Lesson learned. Oh, I love to cook too.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that I really enjoy. So, that's been a little bit of a interesting experience this year with learning about food allergies. And also I live in a tiny home, so navigating kind of the materials or lack of materials that I have to use for cooking, but it is something
Mini fridge.
such a disaster. I'm like, yeah, we could talk about a tiny home for a whole episode. And it's been such a delightful challenge too. Like it really is helping me to um streamline not only my routine but my stuff and just get rid of not what I'm not using. But it's also a challenge because there's
Yeah, when you minimalize, now you're stuck with what do I do with my minimal things?
yes, and especially as we enter into the next few years of our delightful economy, political situation, I am going to start doing no buying and or low buying years. So this will be really interesting because I've gotten rid of a lot of shit. So, anyway, it's just been an interesting thing to navigate. Anyway, I love to cook.
Cool.
Yeah, what about some of your hobbies?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I like to do projects. I'm kind of a handy girl. I do pretty much anything around the house, painting, repairs, wallpapering, replacing light fixtures. I don't know. I do do a lot of stuff.
Love it.
I also really love to refinish furniture, which I haven't had a lot of time for lately, so that would be really fun. And I have a lot of active hobbies too. I like to hike and get outdoors. I also have roller skates, and I was a figure skater growing up, so sometimes I like to go do that. I'm going to do that this weekend actually
So
at the outdoor rink, so that's gonna be super fun.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of random things that I like to do, and I like to say I'm creative, but not with my own mind. Like if I see something, I
Interesting.
am really good at like copying that thing or getting inspiration off of that, but I don't have a lot of creativity in like making my own thing.
I feel so similar to you.
Oh, really?
So maybe that could be a full episode.
Creative
And
pursuits and things.
yes, because it's kind of hard to be creative. I don't know. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an autistic experience of masking and take like processing information of seeing how others doing it and then that's how you like know that it's the way to do it. I'm not sure, but that could be
Yeah.
something we could research and look more into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Add it to the notes.
Add it to, add it to the notes tab. The shared one.
The shared one. Yeah, and then I have a dog and a cat. I have a little Belmont. He's the fuzziest little kitty, and he loves to crawl all over everyone and be cuddled.
He wears a bow
He
tie.
has a bow tie. He's a
Very
dapper
distinguished.
gentleman. And then I have a dog, Jules. She's 11, but she runs me ragged. She still wants to go on like 3+ mile walks if she could every day. I don't have time for that. But she's still going and going. She's a super mutt, so she's probably gonna live forever.
She's so
But
cute.
she loves people. She loves kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a real sweetie, but really sassy. She's mostly Shiba Inu. So if you know anything about that breed, they're like number one hardest to train dogs.
Pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of sass in there.
Very stubborn.
Yes, stubborn is a good one too. Yeah. So yeah, inspiration for the pod. Do you mind if I take this first?
Take it.
All right.
Definitely take it.
So our
Mhm.
inspiration for the podcast kind of came around from Lauren and I joking a little bit about podcasting because we listen to a lot of podcasts. I drive for work and I have a long commute to most of my kiddos' houses, so I do a lot of listening to podcasts. And a lot of times Lauren and I will listen to them together. Anyways, we were kind of talking about it. She kept being like, you should host a podcast. You should host a podcast. And we'd be like, well, what would it even be about? I don't know. Like, there's so many podcasts out there. How do we even pick something? And so we are talking about like, oh yeah, like all of us are neurodiverse and have lots of friends who are, and like, it's a really interesting thing to talk about in general. But I was like, I don't know what to do with that. And so one day we went on a camping trip with McKenna, and I kind of jokingly threw out there like, oh yeah, Lauren and I were talking about starting a podcast, and I don't think I even got the whole sentence out.
You definitely didn't.
Before Megan was
Big
like,
ADHD moment. Jumping right on.
yeah,
Yes. Pick me.
yes, yes. Yeah, I think you said something like, yeah, say no more, or something like
Typical.
yeah.
Say no more. I'm there.
No more. Yeah. I don't think you even heard what the topic was.
No,
And then we
I
started
didn't.
talking about it after. Yeah.
And then I got even more fired up after learning that you wanted to talk about neurodiversity.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I don't think
so
it was
fun.
like the same weekend, or maybe it was the next weekend because after we got done camping, but we had already like made a notes app and you were talking about starting the email and like when's our first meeting gonna be in like a day.
Hyper focus.
Yeah. So we took off just a little bit.
It's our
But
superpower, right?
I mean, basically, is the other reason that we really talked about it was because we only met like 6 months ago, I think is what we counted up,
Yeah.
at the job that we were working together. And
Yes.
then I think it was only like a month after we met that you changed jobs.
Yes.
But every time that we met up, we'd talk for like an hour, 2 hours, like about anything and
Yeah.
everything. And like our conversations were just so good.
Yeah.
And we kind of vibe on the same level.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I really felt like the way that you talk sometimes like expands my perspectives and also makes me like my best, comforting friend self. And so I just really love that. And was like, I think we could totally like fill some time talking to people.
Yeah. We could definitely fill, 20, 30 minutes of talking time. No, I feel the exact same way. And one of my biggest inspirations, even for being friends with you, and I know I said this last week, but hanging out with you and Lauren at that soccer game and just feeling like you were so joyful, and you have this tattoo on your wrist that says choose joy. And I remember this year has been really hard for me as well, navigating a lot of grief. And this was a pivotal moment for me meeting you and being at that soccer game because you had like sparkles in your hair and we're just like so excited to talk and together. And I was like, oh, I love this person. Like, we're going to be great friends. And it just sparked something in me too. It sparked a little bit of that joy back. So
Aw.
that's something that, thank you, first of all, for giving that to me, and then also for inviting me on this journey. And I think it's going to be really fun. I know that that's a big motivation for me with this podcast is recognizing joy and finding it through all of the bullshit that life as a neurodiverse person is. Like,
Mhm.
it just is. We live in a very ableist world, and it gets clearer and clearer every day. So I think that there's been a lot of rhetoric around joy being a form of resistance, and I would love this podcast to be a reflection of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so that's all we had prepared for today. So Um,
Signing off.
signing off.
I forget what we say at the end. Classic.
Every time. I should have put that on there.
Find joy.
Yep, we got that part every time. Okay, I got it.
Mm.
All right, so signing off. Yeah. Be unapologetically you this week.
And find your joy.
Thanks, hotties.
Bye.
Bye. We've got a podcast.
I know.
We're going to have a podcast in February.
Yeah, we've got a lot of time.
I feel like this is gonna be in like our outtakes. Like at the end, we should just put a little like
Sure.
10 seconds of outtakes where it's just like, oh my god, yes.
Oh my gosh.
We did an episode.
We're podcasters.
Thanks for listening to our podcast.
Pretty much. Thanks for rolling along.